All right, welcome everybody to Coffee with a Cop. Today we're going to start our session. I'm going to introduce our Chief Peter Wingert.
Good morning, everybody. I know it's great February weather. It's a little overcast, and hopefully you got a warm cup of coffee to warm you up. And I'm going to get to Colleen right now, but I wanted to give her a brief introduction. Scams and their impact can be life-altering. Scams are widespread, and in a sense, we can learn how to prevent them. Today, we're going to hear about the top scams of 2020 and the ones that particularly have been impacting Arizonans. I want to welcome and introduce you to our guest speaker, Colleen Tressler from the Federal Trade Commission. Colleen, welcome, and thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. As the nation's consumer protection agency, the FTC works to stop unfair, deceptive, and fraudulent practices in the marketplace. We conduct investigations, sue companies and people that break the law, and alert consumers and businesses about scams we're seeing, as well as educate them about their rights and responsibilities. Today, I'd like to talk about some of the top frauds and scams of 2020 and ways you can spot, stop, and report them. You're actually getting a sneak peek at the data. The complete findings will be made public tomorrow at ftc.gov. Next slide, please. In 2020, the FTC's Consumer Sentinel Network, a secure online database available only to law enforcement, took in more than 4.7 million reports, up from 3.2 million in 2019. While the FTC does not intervene in individual consumer disputes, its law enforcement partners, whether they are down the street, across the nation, or around the world, can use information in the database to stop trends, identify questionable business practices and targets, and enforce the law. Total fraud losses in 2020 were $3.3 billion, up from $1.9 billion in 2019. In 2020, people filed roughly 1.4 million reports about identity theft, more than double the number in 2019. The biggest surge related to the nationwide dip in employment. After the government expanded unemployment benefits to people left jobless by the pandemic, cyber criminals filed unemployment claims using other people's personal information. In 2020, we had 394,280 reports about government benefits fraud, overwhelmingly about identity theft involving unemployment benefits. Compare that number with 12,900 reports in 2019. People also reported identity theft in which criminals use their business or personal information to get money from government-sponsored small business loan programs. Last year, we had 99,650 reports of fraud involving business or personal loans, compared with 43,920 reports in 2019. Not all of the new reports related to the government relief effort, but they were a big share of the increase. People also told us about identity theft involving their federal economic impact payments from the IRS by reporting it as tax identity theft. In 2020, the FTC got 89,390 reports of tax identity theft, compared with 27,450 reports in 2019. While many of the reports concerned other types of tax identity theft, the report numbers began to swell when distribution of the impact payments began. Imposter scams, a subset of fraud reports, followed with more than 498,000 reports from consumers in 2020. That's more than 10% of all reports. 22% of those people reported a dollar loss totaling nearly $1.2 billion. These scams include romance scams, people falsely claiming to be the government, a relative in distress, a well-known business, a tech support company, all to get people's money. Online shopping and negative reviews rounded out the top 3 reports in 2020 at 7.5% of all reports. And while online shopping ranks 3rd in overall consumer reports to the FTC, it ranks number 1 when it comes to COVID-related complaints. Here's why. According to an FTC Data Spotlight report issued in July, more people reported problems with online shopping in April and May than in any other months on record. And more than half of them said they never got what they ordered. Reports show that early in the pandemic, shady sellers began putting up websites offering hard to find products like PPE and household cleaners and disinfectants. When customers asked about their orders, scammers said the pandemic was causing shipping delays and then stopped responding, all the while billing people for things that didn't get delivered, wasn't what the customer ordered, or was a cheap knockoff. Next slide, please. Now let's look at fraud losses by age. For the 2nd year in a row, younger people lost money to fraud more often than older people. Also, for the 2nd year, the median loss was much higher for people aged 70 and older. Next slide, please. Like the nation, the top 3 scams and frauds were the same for the state of Arizona and the metro area of Phoenix, Mesa, and Chandler. Arizona ranked 14th in the country with 27,661 identity theft reports to the FTC. Also in 2020, Arizona ranked 11th in the country with the highest number of fraud reports to the FTC. Now, states are ranked based on the number of reports per 100,000 population. For Arizona, that made 869 reports per 100,000, with the total number of reports at 63,248. The median fraud loss was $374, but fraud losses statewide totaled more than $69.5 million. Next slide, please. You might wonder what, besides these numbers, comes out of reporting scams and other consumer issues to the FTC. Well, because of people's reports, the FTC and its law enforcement partners are able to investigate the individuals and companies that trick people into paying money. Reports help build and bring those cases, which also helps us enforce laws that stop scams and other dishonest business practices that take people's money. In fact, during 2020, 1.7 million people nationwide and in 64 countries received payments totaling $483 million because of the FTC's law enforcement actions. People got refunds resulting from more than 50 cases. Now, the FTC usually sends refunds to consumers by check, but in 2020, the agency also issued PayPal refund payments to consumers in 11 cases. And by sending electronic payments, the FTC made it possible to get money back to people even when their physical mailing address information was not available. The case that resulted in the most money returned to consumers in 2020 was a multi-agency settlement with Western Union. As a result of law enforcement actions brought against Western Union by the FTC, the U.S. Department of Justice, and the U.S. Postal Inspection Service, approximately 142,000 consumers got 100% of their money back, totaling approximately $300 million. Refunds went to people who sent money via Western Union in response to romance scams, grandparent scams, advance fee loan scams, lottery scams, and other internet scams, and who filed complaints about having been so defrauded. Next slide, please. I'd now like to turn your attention to the FTC's education mission. We have a saying at the FTC, Education is the first line of defense against fraud and deception in the marketplace. I work in the agency's Division of Consumer and Business Education, also known as DCBE. Our mission is to give people the tools they need to make informed decisions and give businesses the tools they need to comply with the law. With a team of about 20 writers, marketers, graphic artists, web designers, and videographers, we create plain language information online, in print, in audio, and on video. We also publish blog posts and send free email alerts to more than 500,000 subscribers. Our materials are available in English, Spanish, and other languages as needed. Our objective advice, sometimes targeted to a particular audience, helps people understand their rights and recognize, avoid, and report frauds. An education component is included in each FTC law enforcement announcement. Next slide, please. DCBE manages multiple websites with downloadable information for consumers, including consumer.ftc.gov. Here you'll find hundreds of articles, blog posts, and videos on a wide range of issues. You can also sign up to receive our blog posts by email at ftc.gov/subscribe. Consumer.gov offers plain and simple tips on managing and using your money wisely, using credit and loans carefully, and protecting your identity and money. Pass It On has materials and videos for active older adults. Pass It On is a research-based campaign to share information about fraud and encourage people to share the information. Militaryconsumer.gov helps service members, veterans, and their families find resources on avoiding fraud and making better informed decisions when managing money. The site is part of the Military Consumer Campaign with the U.S. Department of Defense, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and Military Saves. And lastly, identitytheft.gov. That's where you can report identity theft, create a user account, and get a detailed, customized recovery plan. Hundreds of thousands of identity theft victims have created personalized recovery plans using this innovative and award-winning website. And it just so happens that this week is Identity Theft Awareness Week. The truth is, identity theft can happen to anyone, but there are things you can do to reduce your risk. For example, you can join the FTC and its partners for free webinars and other events this week. We'll highlight what you can do to protect your personal information, share red flag warning signs of possible identity theft, and explain what to do if identity theft happens to you. Visit ftc.gov/ID Theft Week to learn more. Next slide, please. And of course, I couldn't let the presentation go without talking about the coronavirus and the related scams. We have a dedicated webpage at ftc.gov/coronavirus. And we've been keeping some separate stats about frauds and scams during the pandemic. So since January 1 of 2020, the FTC has received more than 338,000 COVID-related complaints. The total fraud loss as of yesterday is more than $319 million. This information is updated each weekday and can be found on this website, ftc.gov/coronavirus. Now, launched in March of 2020, this site has 4 sections. The consumer section offers tips to avoid coronavirus scams, a library of timely blog posts and alerts, and links to other government resources. The business section includes information on how to get support, avoid scams, and follow appropriate practices in the marketplace. The enforcement section is where you can find complaint data related to COVID-19 and the agency's actions against scammers who are using the pandemic to deceive or defraud consumers. And finally, the resources section houses actual robocall recordings, videos, social media shareables, infographics, and materials in other languages. Next slide, please. So now that we've talked numbers and resources, let's talk about common signs of a scam that could help you avoid falling for one. So we have 4 signs that it's a scam. Scammers pretend to be from an organization you know. They often pretend to be contacting you on behalf of the government. They might use a real name, like the Social Security Administration, the IRS, or Medicare, or make up a name that sounds official. Some pretend to be from a business you know, like a utility company, a tech company, or even a charity asking for donations. They use technology to change the phone number that appears on your caller ID, so the name and number you see might not be real. The second point, scammers say there's a problem or even a prize. They might say you're in trouble with the government, or you owe money, or someone in your family had an emergency, or that there's a virus on your computer. Others will lie, say you won money in a lottery or sweepstakes, but you have to pay to get it. Some scammers may say there's a problem with one of your accounts and that you have to verify some information. The third point, the third sign, scammers pressure you to act immediately. They want you to act before you have time to think. If you're on the phone, they might tell you not to hang up so you can't check out their story. They might threaten to arrest you, sue you, take away your driver's or business license, or deport you. They might say your computer is about to be corrupted. And the fourth sign of a scam, scammers tell you to pay in a specific way. They often insist that you pay by sending money through a money transfer company or by putting money on a gift card and then giving them the number on the back of the card. Some will send you a check that will later turn out to be fake and tell you to deposit it and then send money back to them. So what can you do to avoid a scam? First up, block unwanted calls and text messages. Second, don't give your personal or financial information in response to a request that you didn't expect. Legitimate organizations won't call, email, or text to ask for your personal information, like your social security, bank account, or credit card numbers. If you get an email or text message from a company you do business with and you think it's real, it's still best not to click on any links. Instead, contact them using a website you know is trustworthy, or look up their phone number. Don't call a number they gave you or the number from your caller ID. It can be spoofed. Then resist the pressure to act immediately. Legitimate businesses will give you the time to make a decision. Anyone who pressures you to pay or give them your personal information is a scammer. And know how scammers tell you to pay. Never pay someone who insists you pay with a gift card or by using a money transfer service. And never deposit a check and send money back to someone you don't know. Finally, stop and talk to someone you trust. Before you do anything, tell someone, a friend, a family member, a neighbor, what happened. Talking about it could help you realize it's a scam, and then report it to the FTC. Next slide, please. When people see frauds, scams, and other bad business practices, we want to know about it. We use these reports to investigate, bring law enforcement cases, and alert people about what frauds to be on the lookout for so they can protect themselves, their friends, and family. And to make it easier, the FTC recently launched reportfraud.ftc.gov. This is a new version of the FTC's consumer reporting website. By following a few short steps, your report is instantly available to more than 3,000 federal, state, and local law enforcers across the country. After someone tells us what happened, they'll get advice on what they can do to recover and how to guard against fraud in the future. Next slide, please. In closing, I'd like to ask you to visit our websites, use our materials, and contact me if you'd like to discuss additional outreach opportunities. And I'm happy to answer any questions folks have on the meeting today.
If there are any questions, if you want to submit them over, we'll read them. We'll give people a little bit of time to type any questions they might have.
Thanks, Colleen. Great presentation. You can post in the chat screen any questions for Colleen. From my perspective, the frauds and scams are one of the things that drive our theft numbers. Colleen mentioned identity theft, credit card theft, those types of things. And those all reflect as thefts in Paradise Valley and under the FBI UCR, Uniform Crime Report numbers. And most of our increase in theft in 2020 was driven by mail theft out of mailboxes, but that also then leads into identity theft, which also leads into scams and that type of thing as well. So this is one of those things that's multifaceted, and you might be, if you're the victim of a mail theft or theft from your mailbox, it can start to pile up on you, snowball on you with an identity theft or something else additionally. So this is something we could really, if you're vigilant about scams and thefts, mail theft, it'll help us across the board as a community to decrease the theft numbers. I don't see any questions posted in the chat screen at this point. I do have a couple of council members that I wanted to recognize. First, Julie Pace, Council Member Julie Pace is on. I'll give her a moment to talk. And then I also see Council Member Anna Thomason.
Great. Thank you, Chief. And thank you, Steve McGee, as always, Officer McGee, to do all this community outreach that's so important. And thank you, Colleen, this morning for the presentation. I've already emailed the Chief and Steve McGee to get a copy of it, and I'll get that distributed to as many people as we can. It's a very good reminder of all the steps we all need to be aware of. I'm an employment lawyer by trade, besides serving on council, but we have a lot of issues happen with fraud, even in the workforce. Even our best accounting people make the mistake and don't see that an email address from a vendor has been changed by one letter or one symbol, like a period or an exclamation point, and that means it's a scam. So it is important that everyone, consumers are less likely to see that as quickly, but even people who do this day to day in accounting are always getting targeted at their organizations. I wanted to bring up a couple quick things if helpful while we're waiting to see if there's any chat room questions for the Chief or Colleen. But there's a couple tools that I have recommended to my own family, my mother, my husband. I trust them not at all. You know, they all make the mistakes. They're all busy. And so I kind of try to take over to control their world on some of these items. But one item, and again, we're not here to endorse any particular service, but I'll tell you what I have found and that I have used. I use the Robo Killer. That's a $20 a year service. And you can put it on your phone. I have an iPhone, so I can't say today what works on an Android, but on the iPhone that has worked really well. It will show you before you pick up the call, whether it's a potential spam, so you can ignore it and let it go to voicemail. And you also, if you see it's a spam and you can tell, you also can block your calls on an iPhone. So you just go to that phone, don't answer it, but you just go down to your recent calls, you click on the button on the right for information. And if you scroll to the very bottom, there's this great little button on iPhone that says block caller. So that will help you get your life back and not have them repeatedly call you. And also they tend, as Colleen said, to send and sell your phone number to everybody. The other thing I use at the house phone, because a lot of us in Paradise Valley have a home line, because some of us have some issues from time to time on cell service. But on your home phone, if you use the CenturyLink home phone line, it does have an amazing anti-spam phone message that prevents you from getting spam calls at home. It does cost I think it's like $6 a month. I've used it for 15 years in PV and it has worked amazing. I get my phone to myself at home and I don't get any spam calls. 2 other tips, Amazon. Amazon will tell you that if you're using Amazon, and all of us during this COVID environment are obviously shopping at home more, which by the way, we like on town council because we get credit for the property or the sales tax now. So it's actually helping revenues to use to help support our law enforcement in our town services. But part of Amazon, one of the bigger scams is if you do not have 2-step factor authentication set, where it actually won't let you log in and buy anything till they send you a number. It's a 6-code number to your phone. Then you put it into your login. Then that's way more secure. So Amazon will encourage you to do that. You have to know to do that and get used to these 2-step factor authentications, which use your cell phone with your computer to verify who you are. And that helps it make it a little less hackable. I also, if you're worried on your devices, your computer or your phone, I also have had good luck with the malware, malware software for Apple. And you can buy that for 5 devices. So you can set it on your laptop, your iPad, your phone, your spouse's phone, like I have done, and my mother's phone. So you get 5 options on it. Not a bad idea to use that. And then the other thing, again, these are just my layperson employment lawyer tips, is if you go into Facebook or LinkedIn, it's a really important item, in my opinion, to sign out. Don't leave it open on your phone all the time. That is also how hackers come in. It's very easy to do. And there is a button, you have to scroll all the way down that says sign out. So just remember your password, remember how to log back in on Facebook and on LinkedIn, and just don't leave it open where people could potentially review what's going on your phone. One more last item I'll tell you, my last tip of the day, since Colleen's got me thinking about all these, is I suggest not doing any, and this is just me, Julie Pace, personally saying this, I would not do any financial transactions on a cell phone ever. I wouldn't check your bank account. I wouldn't leave credit cards on there. I'm not a big person to just leave them open on accounts and vendors, but I would not open and check your bank accounts or anything like that. I think that's not a good approach. And I also absolutely do not like the take a picture of a check and have that either deposited or paid, or deposited, I should say, to your account. I think it's better to still go back to the manual way. You have better protections from the banks that way and for your own accounts. All right, that's my tips. Sorry, Chief, I didn't see we had any chat room, so I'm just adding all my little tips I've been giving all my companies and their employees. So thank you, Colleen, and thank you, Chief, and thanks, Steve McGee, and I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Anna Thomason.
Thank you, Chief. Good morning, all. And Ms. Tressler, thank you for joining us this morning. We very much appreciate it. My takeaway from your presentation, for which I'm so grateful, is a very simple message that if it seems odd, smells odd, or feels odd, follow your instinct and just say no. It's okay to hang up and it's okay to delete emails. So thank you for that education. And Chief, thank you and your crew for always keeping us safe and keeping us feeling safe. Tragically, the loss of life of Florida FBI agents yesterday reminded me with a little hole in my heart that law enforcement is a very dangerous job. And so my gratitude to you and your crew. Thank you all.
Thank you. I sure appreciate it. And yeah, we're mourning the loss of the 2 FBI agents in Florida even today. So also recognize Town Manager Jill Kimak is out in as a participant or as a attendee today. Jill, did you want to say anything?
I just want to thank everyone who gets up in the morning and learns from Coffee with a Cop. These Coffee with a Cop events are so important for all the residents, and I want to thank the police department for doing it and for Colleen to come and give us really good information, but mostly for all the participants to come and educate yourself about critical things and how to help the police department out by not being scammed, and everything that we do to teach ourselves, remind ourselves, learn from each other is helpful for the whole community. So I just want to say thank you and good morning to everybody.
Thank you as well. And I don't have any comments or questions in the chat screen. So with that, next month, Stephen, do you want to give us a brief update for what we're talking about next month? And then we'll go get our coffee refill. Colleen, I really appreciate you coming today and hope that we didn't get you up too early without a cup of coffee. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'm happy to come back anytime and talk on other topics.
We'll certainly invite you back. Stephen, take it away.
Next month, we have the IRS coming in to talk about different scams related to their bureau. And so we'll be having that released for sign up sometime mid-month. And if there are any other questions that come up in the meantime, feel free to send me an email and we'll connect you with the resource and the answer that we find. Thank you all for attending and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Have a great morning.
Thank you.